Hello everyone. So in this lecture, we'll be discussing about the HTML ID attribute. The HTML ID attribute is used to specify a unique ID for an HTML element. So you cannot have more than one element with the same ID in an HTML document. So let us see how this ID attributes works. The ID attribute specifies a unique ID for an HTML element. The value of the ID attribute must be unique within the HTML document. The ID attribute is used to point a specific style declaration in a style sheet. It is also used by JavaScript to access and manipulate the element with specific ID. So for making an ID, what you need to do, first you need to start with a hash character, and then you have to write the ID name, and then you have to define its CSS properties within the curly braces. So let us see how we can do. So for example, here we have in the style section, we'll make our ID with a hashtag my header. Then we'll write we'll open a curly bracket and we'll write all the CSS properties over here. Now in H1, if I have to use these CSS properties, so I'll write ID is equal to my header, which we wrote the name of the ID. So let us see. So this is how it works. So here we have made an ID such like that, my header. So the background color is this, padding is this, and then in H1 here I have written in ID my header. So what will happen? My header is there. So this is how you could use it. Now talking about difference between class and ID. So what is the difference? So if you use ID, something like this, so it style the elements with ID, you could style like this, and in something like class, so what will happen? It will style everything. Like for example, in H2, if class is equal to city, London, so everything will be displayed. Classes could be used for multiple headings, but if we have used for H1, so an element with a unique ID, so ID is used as unique, but multiple elements with same class are there in classes. So for unique ID, you need to use the ID attribute, and for multiple elements, if you want to use, you will use the class element. So you could also use HTML bookmarks with ID and links. HTML bookmarks are used to allow readers to jump to specific parts of a web page. Bookmarks can be useful if your page is very long. To use a bookmark, you must first create it and then add a link to it. Then when the link is clicked, the page will scroll down to the location with the bookmark. For example, the ID is C4, chapter 4. So what we need to do, let us see. So we have already discussed this. Let us see this again. So there are like 10 sections of this book here, or maybe 23 chapters. So if I say jump to chapter 4, it will take me to chapter 4. If I say jump to chapter 10, so it will take me to chapter 10. Now how does it work? So we need to understand that in paragraph we have written in anchor tag that ahref C4 jump to chapter 4, and then we have closed this anchor tag. So now what will happen in paragraph here? C4 is the ID of chapter 4. So here in chapter 4 we have the ID to C4. Now if I create a link C4, so it will take me to C4 because ID here mentioned is C4, and here which what link I am creating using the anchor tag and the href tag, we create links, right? So we have created links using ID because hashtag is being used, so ID is created. And for chapter 10 we have ID C10. So this is how it works. So when I click on chapter 10, it takes me to chapter 10 and scroll down. So this is how HTML ID works. You could also use it in JavaScript, which will be get element by ID. This is a very basic and famous method. So this is how you could use it, and we'll be discussing this in JavaScript. So this was the chapter summary. The ID attribute is used to specify a unique ID for an HTML element, and all the CSS and JavaScript properties could be written inside ID and class sections. So this is how it works, and there's also an exercise which I want you should try it on your own. So you have to add the correct HTML attribute to make the H1 element red. So what you need to do, there is an ID already made, my header, and in curly braces color red is mentioned. So what you need to do, you will write ID is equal to, and in inverted commas you will write my header. So what will happen? The ID is my header and you'll mention it over here. So what will happen, this my home page, the color will be red. So this is how it works. In the next lecture I'll be discussing about HTML iframes, and I'll meet you in the next lecture.